An epic Canadian Grand Prix fight between Mercedes' warring F1 drivers was spoiled by a retirement for George Russell, whose sudden 43-point championship deficit comes with a particularly big problem. Although nobody at Mercedes would ever want to see one of their cars stopped by the side of the road, some people might have been a little relieved that Russell's stoppage while in a narrow lead at least put an end to his slugfest with teammate Kimi Antonelli. After clashing in the sprint over victory led to an extremely annoyed Antonelli getting a public telling off from team boss Toto Wolff over the radio, Mercedes then had to intervene in the Grand Prix itself because their fierce fight was close to crossing a line. On one occasion, Antonelli locked up and nearly rear-ended Russell into the final corner. On another, he skipped the chicane after Russell left him no space and was very unhappy with the order that came immediately after to give the position back. As the two traded errors under braking in tricky low grip conditions and went wheel to wheel enough times closely enough to make Mercedes nervous, the call came to both. If we can't keep it tidy, then we'll have to stop you racing. Very soon after, the situation resolved itself when Russell suffered a sudden engine failure entering the turn 8-9 chicane. So battle over, mega fight for the win ruined, and a Mercedes headache averted, at least for now. We'll come to the tense situation Mercedes once again finds itself managing later in this video. The obvious immediate consequence of what happened in Canada is that it delivered an early hammer blow to Russell's title hopes and put Antonelli in a commanding championship position. What bodes particularly badly for Russell right now is not just the 43-point margin, but the likelihood of him taking big lumps out of the gap based on current form. Russell outscored Antonelli by 169 points last year, with barely a couple of weekends in which rookie Antonelli looked better. Were that balance of power the case today, then a 43-point deficit would be an annoyance for Russell to overcome, but one that you would back him to comfortably overturn in the end. But that was before these first 5 rounds of 2026, which offer a convincing sample size that suggests Antonelli has taken a monster leap to a level that Russell can't just expect to brush aside. Even in Montreal, where Russell has now earned 3 pole positions in a row. Russell was not massively convincing this weekend. Antonelli actually looked like he might have had the better underlying pace throughout, and that's a bit of a concern. Russell batted away his awful Miami round by calling it a bogey track, so to then have to fight tooth and nail to just about edge Antonelli at a Russell stronghold wasn't exactly a swashbuckling return to form. Montreal does tend to flatter the car that's following in the race, as it's a big advantage to have the tow and the extra bit of recharging permitted in 2026 if you're within a second of the car in front, but Antonelli was at the very least on Russell's pace throughout. Moreover, the points just aren't coming. Russell can't buy a non-sprint win at the moment, and he's complained about his misfortune a few times already this year, with a technical problem in qualifying in China when he was on top that weekend, and a badly timed safety car that dropped him back behind Antonelli in the race in Japan. And he could, maybe should, have won in Canada, but instead he's had to watch Antonelli rack up his 4th win in a row. No wonder Russell feels a bit hard done by, and like the gods don't want me to be in this fight. That's also why he reacted so emotionally to the retirement, flinging his headrest out of the car onto the track and getting himself into trouble with the FIA as a result. Clearly, beating Antonelli once is proving hard enough, and Russell now needs to do it 7 times in a row just to guarantee getting back into the championship lead. With Mercedes still more likely than not to be first and second unless they get in their own way, Russell can expect that if he does win, it'll likely be Antonelli following him home, minimising the points loss. Antonelli's step this year is similar to what Oscar Piastri did from his year 2 in F1 to year 3, to put Lando Norris in so much trouble last season. Like Piastri, Antonelli's points buffer has been aided by a big dollop of attrition, but he's also quick enough and robust enough to beat his teammate in a straight fight. That same example does carry an obvious warning though. Russell was right to call this Antonelli's championship to lose right now, but it's very, very early in a long season to write anything off. And we only have to look back a few months to how rapidly Piastri's 2025 season fell apart late on for a reminder of how someone seemingly in control can suddenly hemorrhage points. There's a lot further to go in this season for Antonelli than when Piastri's title bid crumbled too. Plus, Antonelli is still messy in his execution, and this weekend was guilty of some unnecessary teammate belligerence that could bite him in the backside at some point. All that's to say, it's round 5 of 22. And maybe more if one of the cancelled Middle Eastern races gets re-added. And there'll surely be more swings between now and the end of the year. But perhaps the most relevant point to make about Russell is the odd swing won't be enough. Antonelli looks like a formidable opponent. For all the talk in pre-season and back in Australia that Russell was the clear favourite and had learned how to maximise these new engines and rules so quickly, Antonelli looks extremely at home with F1 2026 himself. He's quick, a nuisance, aggressive, and at his best, he's been simply too good for Russell to match.
This video is presented by Attio, the AI CRM for high growth teams. In motorsport, the team with the best data wins. Every lap, every corner, every pit stop decision comes down to how fast you can read the situation and act on it. Business is no different. The teams running on Attio aren't the ones working the longest hours. They're the ones moving with laser precision with the right information at the right moment. That's what Attio is built to give you. Connect your emails, calls and product data, and Attio instantly builds your CRM with enriched data and complete context. Then ask Attio anything. Prep for a meeting in seconds, spot deals at risk before they stall, know your next move before your competition does. Powered by universal context, Attio's intelligence layer, every customer signal is connected and instantly actionable. The race doesn't slow down, neither should your CRM. As a viewer of this video, you can claim a 14-day free trial with Attio, so now is an excellent time to up your CRM game with no strings attached. Redeem the offer for free at attio.com/race. Ask more from CRM. Ask Attio.
Given how feisty Canada got at times across both races, it would obviously be a shame if a lesser title battle meant Russell and Antonelli went at each other less intensely in the coming races. But actually, the opposite's likely to be true. This weekend the gloves came off, as neither driver did anything egregious, but it was definitely an escalation in their rivalry. Russell's long since proven himself to be a ruthless operator when he needs to be. In Canada we saw a different side to Antonelli, not willing to hang around, happy to try something bold and aggressive against his own teammate, and even call for a penalty over the radio. Maybe this wasn't the smartest play overall, putting himself the driver ahead of the team so overtly, and team boss Toto Wolff was not impressed, but it showed that Antonelli had no interest in just holding station. He felt quicker, he probably was quicker, so he went for every single gap that appeared. Then, even though he got a light wrist slapping after the sprint, he did the same in the Grand Prix. This was a sustained hard fight, but as Wolff said, it was close a few times with a few situations that could have ended in retirements. And Wolff says if there's a risk of losing points or rivals getting too close on track, Mercedes would not be a millimetre hesitant putting the handbrake on. That's understandable because Russell and Antonelli can and already have let others into the picture if they aren't careful. Their squabbling and Antonelli's desperate reaction in the sprint allowed Lando Norris to pinch second place, and Russell was so preoccupied with covering Antonelli off into the first corner at the start of the Grand Prix that he opened the door completely to Norris instead. For the most part though, this is what we can expect when the fight is exclusively between the Mercedes drivers. Both say they enjoy this, and Mercedes wants to allow them to fight. So if it keeps happening, there's no way it gets less tense, with Russell desperately trying to claw back points and Antonelli trying to maintain a lead in what looks like a proper title shot. Yes, Russell being removed from the picture in Canada diffused that situation for Mercedes, and it's kicked a can down the road in the sense that such a big points margin means there's no massive winner-takes-all swing on the immediate horizon. But if Mercedes has re-established an advantage for itself at the head of the field with its first major car upgrade package of the year, then what we saw on track in Canada could easily become a recurring theme of the next run of races. That wouldn't make Russell's unenviable task of cutting into Antonelli's lead any easier, but it would be a lot of fun to watch.